Welcome to the Cultural and Community Resilience CCR Applicant Webinar by the National Endowment for the Humanities. My name is Hadassah St. Hubert, and I'm a Senior Program Officer in the Division of Preservation and Access. Today I'll be speaking about our newest program entitled Cultural and Community Resilience CCR. We will be accepting drafts until Thursday, December 1st of 2022. The application is due on Thursday, January 12th of 2023 on grants.gov. Today we'll go over what the Cultural and Community Resilience Program, or CCR, can fund, share some examples of potential project ideas, and how you can apply for an award. I'll offer some suggestions for writing a good application and answer some frequently asked questions. The CCR program is administered by NEH's Division of Preservation and Access, which is one of 7 divisions and offices at the NEH. CCR supports the documenting, collecting, and safeguarding of traditional knowledge, oral histories, archival materials, and other types of cultural heritage. CCR seeks to mitigate the loss of tangible or intangible cultural heritage resources in disadvantaged communities due to climate change or the COVID-19 pandemic, sustain community in the aftermath of extreme weather events, or otherwise advance cultural and community resilience. The CCR program supports activities such as, but not limited to, identifying and capturing cultural and historical resources, including through digital means in communities potentially endangered by climate events such as wildfires, drought, hurricanes, or rising sea levels. It also safeguards cultural heritage resources to mitigate the impacts of the coronavirus pandemic. It also supports collecting oral histories from individuals impacted by extreme weather events or the COVID-19 pandemic, including survivors and first responders. It also supports documenting traditional knowledge, memories of elders, practices, or technology that may inform contemporary ways of working and living. It seeks to engage in collaborative planning efforts to prepare communities for rapid response collecting and applying insights from cultural heritage identification and documentation projects to inform local and regional community resilience strategies. The program prioritizes projects from disadvantaged communities, and NEH welcomes applications at all stages of project development, from planning through implementation, especially those that employ inclusive methodologies such as participatory archiving, oral history, rapid response collecting, shared stewardship arrangements, and community-centered access. NEH encourages you to leverage open access online materials and resources and the use of Creative Commons licenses when possible and as appropriate. As you can see on this slide, CCR funding levels are up to $150,000. Your project may take up to 2 years to complete, beginning as early as October 1st of 2023. And just a reminder that all activities must relate to climate change or the COVID-19 pandemic. Since this is a new program, here are a few potential examples of project ideas that might resonate with your organization. A local historical society creates an oral history collection with reflections from first responders after wildfires or other types of climate crises. An organization is interested in documenting and safeguarding traditional memories of Indigenous elders or other knowledge keepers during climate crises such as drought. In an area prone to wildfires, a public library, community college, and local historical society develop a plan for rapid response collecting should a wildfire occur. One project outcome would be a memorandum of understanding outlining the goals of collecting and responsibilities of each partner, including for outreach to the community and for acting as the repository for physical and digital collection items. CCR also supports the collecting of experiences of doctors, nurses, and other emergency responders during COVID-19. It also supports the documenting of everyday community experiences during the COVID-19 pandemic, such as lifestyle changes and encounters with shortages or losses. Another potential project could be a state university that wants to steward a post-custodial archive for a community that must resettle due to sea level rise and increased flooding. Do you have an idea? We recommend contacting us even at the very beginning stages. Developing an application. Please refer to the Notice of Funding Opportunity or NOFO for all required and recommended documentation needed for submission. The main component of a CCR application is the project narrative. This is a 10-page single-space document where you will describe your project, the activities you would like to undertake, and answer the questions that help address the review criteria. Organize your narrative using the section headings, which include project goals and humanities content, community participation, methodology, and outcomes. Each section aligns with one or more review criteria NEH will use to evaluate your proposal. For the project goals and humanities content section, describe the goals of your project. Address how it would mitigate the loss of tangible or intangible cultural heritage resources due to climate change or COVID-19. How would it sustain the community in the aftermath of extreme weather events or otherwise advance cultural and community resilience? For example, how has your community felt the impacts of climate change or the coronavirus pandemic? What are the likely climate or pandemic related risks to its cultural heritage resources? In addition, if the Justice 40 initiative identifies your community as disadvantaged under its framework, discuss the relevant circumstances referring to the Climate and Economic Justice Screening Tool. Applicants affected by the tool's deficiencies may choose to incorporate other means to describe how their community is disadvantaged. For applicants discussing the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on their community, you may refer to publicly available data provided by the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention or your local jurisdiction. In the community participation section, describe how the project design will empower people in communities to define, collect, and use their cultural and historical resources. Explain how community members would participate and how you would support transparency and shared decision-making. As relevant, discuss how you would support meaningful community engagement and partnerships, how you would address any potential harms to individuals or communities, and how you would promote continued access to and shared authority in cultural heritage. Specifically discuss the community's role in the ongoing management of its cultural heritage. Where partnerships already exist, describe how and when they were developed. Explain how the project would enrich the broader mission and longer-term vision, goals, and capacity of each partner. In the case of proposed projects specific to Native American groups and cultural materials, indicate how you would adhere to the NEH Code of Ethics relating to Native Americans. Within the methodology section, explain how you would implement the project and how your methods relate to professional practices in the humanities, preservation, and cultural heritage documentation. Discuss how your approach reflects the needs and resources of your organization or community while working to build the long-term availability and discoverability of cultural and historical resources. For oral history projects, identify narrators to the extent possible and provide examples of questions you will ask. Discuss plans for preparatory research, recording equipment, interview settings, securing permissions, and post-interview preservation and access methods such as audio streaming, transcription, or time-based indexing. For guidance, refer to the Statement of Principles and Best Practices published by the Oral History Association. Describe the project's technological framework, including the software, equipment, and storage systems you will employ as relevant to your project. For example, what preservation standards or practices would you follow for the safe handling of cultural and historical resources? For photographing, recording, and digitizing these resources and describing them. Identify the community's choice of a repository or repositories to hold digital copies of items with their permission. In the outreach section, identify the project deliverables and how you would share them among key stakeholders and audiences who would benefit from access. Describe how you would address intellectual property and privacy issues and provide documentation of existing or sample permissions, donor agreements, licenses, or proofs of informed consent you will use as relevant within additional supporting documentation. For planning and pilot projects, discuss your likely next steps. For implementation projects, describe how you would sustain the resulting resources. In addition to the narrative, we ask you to include some supporting information to bolster your case for funding. All applicants must submit a budget and budget justification, which is a written explanation of the line items in your budget. Another requirement is the inclusion of a detailed work plan, where you outline the specifics to achieving your project's goals. You may want to format this as a bulleted list or table. A monthly or quarterly breakdown is helpful. You may also want to make note of who's working on which portions of the project. Also, don't forget to build in a little padding time. If reasonable for your project, we recommend requesting the full 2 years allowed. Finally, all applicants must include resumes or CVs for the staff and consultants participating in the project. We recommend including a letter of commitment and a letter of support from the communities or organizations you intend to work with. While not required, other supporting documents, including examples of questions you will ask for oral history projects, are encouraged. For more tips on what makes a good proposal and the application process in general, please read Tips on Applying for Preservation and Access Award at the top of our blog on the NEH Division of Preservation and Access's site page. Here are some best practices to applying for an NEH award. Read the Notice of Funding Opportunity or guidelines on the NEH website. I recommend reading and rereading the grant application instructions before, during, and even after writing your proposal. You can also contact us and we can answer questions at any point before submission. We recommend drafting early and soliciting feedback. Make sure to fully address the review criteria. Include all the information specified in the guidelines. Include strong letters of support when permitted. And proofread. Always get another set of eyes to read your application before submission. As we encourage you to submit drafts and applications, you should also know what the application review process looks like. There are 4 levels of review. First is peer review. This is done by a panel of peers. Applications are sorted into panels with regard to the institution or collection type. The peer reviewers will evaluate the applications based on the review criteria mentioned previously. Then they assign a rating and write comments. Then the application is reviewed by NEH staff and recommendations are made. The National Council on the Humanities, an advisory board of 26 members who have distinguished themselves in the humanities, meets 3 times a year to advise. These members are nominated by the President and confirmed by the Senate. They discuss the applications and make their recommendations for funding to the chair of the endowment. The NEH chair makes the final funding decision. Program officers can help you navigate through the grant process, from pre-application to final report. We can help you determine the right funding program for your project and offer advice on preparing proposals. We really appreciate the chance to speak with you early in the process and to clarify any questions. Just another reminder that drafts are due on Thursday, December 1st of 2022, and that the application for the CCR Program Award is due on Thursday, January 12th of 2023. Have any questions? Please contact us at preservation@neh.gov with any questions you may have. Thank you for joining us today.